we are going to sync our data. The first thing we're going to do is go to sync services. And when we go to sync services, there's a whole bunch of different services that we can sync stuff with. So we configure our account, essentially. I already have that configured, so I can't show you that, but it's pretty easy, I would say. And then from there, you need to sync the data, right? So if you need just kind of an analogy to think about these two things, when you have different systems, the idea of integration in general is basically kind of imagine you have like a river, and you have two river banks, obviously, and you need to get the data across, right? You need to find a way to get stuff across this. When you create the integration, when you associate those accounts, you're essentially building a bridge that allows those two systems, allows you to bring things across those two different systems, right? When we then say we're going to set up a sync, what we're talking about is telling the systems now, or telling these, people that are on opposite sides of a river, which data do we need to get from where, and where do we need to put it once we get to the other side of the river, okay? That's kind of the way that the integration works in a really abstract way. So when you set up the integration, or you set up the connection's there, now you're choosing what kind of data you want to sync and how you want that to work. So when we click New Sync, we have a few options. We can sync from the leads module in CRM, we can sync from the contacts module in CRM, or we can choose a custom module where we might have some data stored. So I'm just going to go ahead and sync leads, and I'll click the little button. And now we get some options here, right? We can sync all of our leads, we can sync a custom view, or we can use some criteria. Who knows what a view is in this context? Few people, not many. So when we say a custom view, what we're talking about is this in CRM. A view is this up here, okay? And there's all sorts of different views that come standard with CRM. So this is a view that shows all the leads in the CRM, okay? And it's 100 records here, right? We could also look at a view that is like for today's leads, right? So leads that have been added to the system today. But then we could also, use views that we've created ourselves. For example, the Google AdWords leads. So this is a view that shows all the leads that were added to the system through Google AdWords, okay? So this is what a view is in the system. So if you already have a certain way of organizing things in CRM that everyone is kind of on the same page about, you can then bring that over with the idea of a custom view in campaigns. But then, of course, you can also set up criteria. And again, anytime that we're doing, criteria, creating segments, creating workflows, it always kind of works with if-then kind of logic, right? If someone has this in this field, then do this with it, right? So we'll say this is going to be like California leads, right? And we don't necessarily need to break up our leads this way. I'm just doing this for the sake of a demo. And so we have a bunch of different fields we can choose from. State is, and it's important that we spell this right because the system is going to use this as the key, essentially, to sort that data. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add them to this list. So obviously, in the loop, customers, leads, contacts, this doesn't really match the example we're doing, so we'll need to create a mailing list, and we'll call these California leads. It asks us, can subscribers join this list via a sign-up form? We're going to say no. And the reason for this is because we actually don't need a sign-up form to be added for this list. The sign-up form is going to, be that thing we can embed on a website and people can find and sign up with, right? We don't want people to join this list willy-nilly because we're saying this is only the people who are California leads. It's a very specific group of people that we're already defining. So we're going to say no because we don't want anyone to contaminate this system. And then we can tell those subscribers how we know them. And this is important because this is actually going to be something that will show up on the little bottom of the email to let them know, how did we find you? How did we get your information, right? And obviously, when we say things like California leads, you don't want to say things like, that are so transparent as far as like, you are a lead in California, right? I mean, that's not something that you really want to do. So you want to say something, you provided your information to us at a trade show or or through a sign-up form or whatever. However you have these people's data, it's going to be something that you wanted to do. So in this example that the gentleman over here gave of going to a conference, you've ended up with this big list of leads, you've added them to the system. How do we know you? You attended X and X place, right? That's something that we could add. We met you through a list that we got at a trade show or something like that, right? That way people, again, they have some sense of how this is actually happening, right? So we'll just say whatever and move forward and hit next. And then this is that part I was talking about where we're mapping fields, right? So mapping the fields is going to be important because it allows us to select the information that's in the leads module and bring it over. So this example doesn't quite apply, but in the contacts, if you were syncing contacts, you would have this option to use deal information or use account information, right? Now the reason you can't use that information for these leads is why? It's because that information doesn't exist when you have a lead, right? That information simply doesn't exist in the system. So it's important to remember how the data is structured in CRM because that's going to affect the way that you can actually bring over certain data, right? I mean, if you have your boss call you up and say, I really think we need this deal information with our leads, you'd say, well, boss, you're talking about contacts, man, right? We can't do that. So it's important to try to understand the terminology that we use. If you were in the CRM sessions earlier today, we would have gone over some of that because it actually kind of has ramifications for then the way that the system works, right? Because essentially these are the assumptions that we've made. So we can go through though and pick different fields. And one of the things you'll notice here, so Sales IQ allows you to do online visitor tracking and live chat, right? So when someone gets added to the CRM through Sales IQ, we can bring through a bunch of data like how many times they've been to our website and how many chats they've had with us and the average time spent on the website, right? So all of these fields that are in the CRM that are created by Sales IQ are things that we would really love to know about our leads because that gives us more ammunition, it gives us more ways that we can split people up and target people. So what we're going to do is actually choose that, and now it's actually going to automatically provide this field for us and we can add it, right? So now when we sync this data, all this lead information, we can bring across the Sales IQ information that's in CRM as well, and we can use that in our email marketing, right? And one of the really cool things that we can do using that data is we can say most recent visit and add that as a field, right? So what we can actually do then is actually target people in campaigns based on how recently they've been to our website, right? And that's through using Sales IQ and bringing that into campaigns. So as that data updates, we can say, okay, everybody that's been to the website within, the last week or the last month, maybe they've have some familiarity. Let's try to really drive sales and let's try to get them all to convert or something like that, right? Basically, you can just target people in more interesting ways by kind of just using all of that information. But you have to just make sure you map it so you can actually bring it all over. Because again, the idea of bringing information across the river, you're telling the system, okay, grab that information over there in the CRM and now put it over here in this new place over in campaigns, and that way we know where to put it from now on, okay? So we'll go ahead and hit next. We've mapped a few fields. I guess we'll go ahead and move on. Or I guess we won't. Okay, we will. And basically now you just have to say how often do you want this sync to happen? Do you want it to be once, daily, weekly, monthly? We want this to be daily. I always think it's a good idea to have these syncs go early in the morning before you come into the office, so that way if there's any things that you're looking at or working on, you have as most recent data as possible, and then it's always fresh for you the next day. Unfortunately, it doesn't sync instantly and it doesn't sync hourly. It's a daily sync. So that's just something to be aware of. You're always working with a day-old data. And then obviously choose the proper time zone as well. Then you're going to say you want all the data to come over, and then you're basically going to select these settings, which basically lets the system know, what do you want to do if a contact gets deleted in CRM, right? Well, if a contact gets deleted from CRM, do we want to remove that from the mailing list or remove it from Zoho campaigns? Smart marketers never delete data, so you just want to remove them from a list so that way you're not bugging them, but you still hold that in the system in case there was an error that was made in the CRM or something like that, right? You don't want to necessarily just delete it. Exclude email opt-out contacts. So if someone is talking to one of your salespeople and says, hey, you guys are really great, but please stop emailing me, the person that's the salesperson can mark email opt-out, and that will then again remove them from the list or remove them from Zoho campaigns. And exclude converted leads. If one of these people that you're going to be emailing, that's a lead, talks to the salesperson and they decide to buy from them, well, we don't want to treat that person like a lead anymore because now they're a customer, so we'll move them from our lead list as well. Does that all make sense? So this is basically our sync. It's all set up and now it is done, right? So now this will happen, and that's pretty much syncing something from CRM over to campaigns, right? Now there's this natural question though. Okay, I'm bringing data from CRM, but what about sending it back to campaigns? Because that's something that we want to do. Well, one of the things that we can do is we can create a related list over here in campaigns. So this is a lead record, Kevin, right? And this is just a quick way of navigating campaigns, right? So you see that any email campaign that we send Kevin is going to end up right here. Okay, so that way we can track the record. So this was a question. Who asked the question? You, right? So this is one of the ways that we can track this back in the CRM, right? So any campaign that gets sent to Kevin, who is one of these leads, he is going to have that noted down in that campaigns list or area or section right there. And that's going to let us know all the different times we've emailed Kevin, and it'll also let us know how he responded to those, right? Whether he opened them or clicked them or whatever, right? So that's essentially how that, essentially how that works as far as your question. So does that all make sense so far? Are we feeling good about integrating stuff? Okay. So the thing that's really nice is that this is something that's really quick. It's pretty easy. I mean, I obviously know what I'm doing, but I've done it for you in about 7 minutes, right? Without that kind of ease of use, I mean, that could be a much longer, kind of complicated, hairier process, right? So so that's pretty much that. Now, as far as autoresponders, the first thing I wanted to show you when we get into autoresponders, this idea of sending people emails automatically is consent emails, right? And consent emails are really important because they allow us to make sure that the people who are in our lists actually want to hear from us. And this, again, does a few things. It makes sure we're not spamming people, which is like the golden rule, don't spam people. Second, it also allows us a way to make sure that everyone in our list wants to hear from us, which, again, it standardizes the level of interest that we're getting from people. Obviously, if I join a mailing list one day and then 2 months later I'm receiving emails and I'm kind of starting to sour, and 6 months later I'm really not answering them anymore, and now this lady here, she joins the list within the last few days, our levels of interest are going to be different already, right? And if I'm unsubscribing, if all these people are unsubscribing, you're going to kind of wonder, well, what's really going wrong here, right? I mean, you can't really account for the way that interest is changing over time. So one thing you can do is you can essentially double check with people by sending them this consent email to what we call expired subscribers, right? People you haven't heard from or you haven't talked to in the last 6 months. And this will allow you then to say, hey, we send you these emails, we haven't really heard from you, are you still into this? And if they say no, well, now you know that, okay, well, the interest fell off there. It's just something they weren't interested in anymore, which is very different from saying like, oh, this new subscriber just immediately unsubscribed because they hated the content we were sending them, right? I mean, there's just some differences there, and it's important to be able to realize them. Similarly, implied subscribers, right? We might have a bunch of people's information that we're emailing, but they may have not ever explicitly said that we can email them, right? So we could run a consent campaign to check on that, right? And what's nifty about this is we can say, let's do a consent campaign for any implied subscribers, and we can say, do we want to send this at regular intervals? So we can kind of automate this, and we can say, let's do this every day after 6 months, or every month on the 6th day, or whatever. I mean, that's kind of confusing, but nonetheless, we can set that up, and then we can choose the recipients and say, send them to all the lists or send to specific lists. We can choose what we want to do, but we'll say send all lists, and we'll go ahead and create. And then we can send that out and make sure that all those people are interested. Or we can say send to specific lists, implied, and we can then choose the list that we want this to go out to, and go from there. And in fact, what's interesting is that this will actually let us know that all of the people that are subscribers in this have actually already given their consent, essentially, right? So that this is something we don't really even have to worry about, and we can just kind of move on. So even just kind of setting this up, it'll let you know whether or not you actually even need to send out to a specific list. Cool, right? So this isn't an autoresponder exactly, but it is something that does work for you in a way that allows you to just kind of take care of things automatically, which is always nice. Because otherwise, sending consent campaigns, basically, it requires a lot more thinking about how you're going to send the email, how you're going to track a response, and then update a field, then move someone to a different list, and becomes a whole thing. This is taking care of a complex process for you just with this feature, and it's making sure that your lists are healthy and they're strong and they're really good, right? So automation, autoresponders. Many of us are already familiar with these, so I'm just going to kind of run through quickly. There's a number of different autoresponders that we can use, and we can use them, for different contexts. So a sign-up autoresponder is something that we can use for to send someone an email or a series of emails as soon as they join one of our lists. So that might be something where they've joined themselves, where they've decided, yes, I want to sign up for this mailing list, and they add themselves. Or it's something where we've added them to a list because they're a lead, and now we want to start our lead nurturing process with them, right? So depending on what you need to use this for, the sign-up autoresponder is really good, but it doesn't necessarily need to be something that someone is joining like for the first time. Does this make sense? Like this could be someone that's already sitting in your system, and you're saying, okay, I just want to start sending these people a series of simple emails, and they're already in one list, and now I just want to cut them out and add them to a new one and send this series of emails, right? You could do that really easily with the sign-up autoresponder. It really just means whenever someone joins this, they're starting to start receiving these emails. So the use case is pretty flexible. Date field autoresponders, this allows you to use a date field. I mean, it's kind of in the title. To send out an automated message. So for example, if you collect the date of birth of your customers, you could then set up a happy birthday email using the date field autoresponder, right? If you keep track of the first time that you closed a deal with someone in your campaigns account, you could then set up an autoresponder that gives them a customer anniversary email that goes out every year. And whenever that date rolls around for all those different people, they'll receive it on the right day, essentially. So again, it allows you to kind of automate some basic customer relationship management, so to speak. Closed group autoresponders, you create a group, send the mail. Calendar, this is going to correspond to dates on the calendar. So I think like Mother's Day is coming up next month. So you'd be able to send a Mother's Day campaign if you wanted to do that. Email action. This allows you to send out emails based on the recipient's activity of a previous email, right? So I send out welcome email 1, and Susan here, she clicks on welcome email 1, so now I want her to get a specific second email because she engaged with the first one, right? This is something that'd be different if I send out this email to Dylan, for example, and Dylan doesn't open it, he doesn't click it, he doesn't do anything else. I want him to have a different email that he gets the second time. Does that make sense? You can build out those kind of scenarios using the email action autoresponder. And Smart Series, this is actually one of the things that I'm going to show you real quick, is basically it allows you to send out a series of emails, but what's nice about it is, say, you start sending out these emails at the beginning of the month to promote, some event that you have that's coming up, right? What you can do is, instead of sending this person the very first email, so you start sending these emails out over the month, and you send out, say, like 5 emails, and say someone joins the mailing list today, so they've missed the first 2 emails. You don't really want or care about them receiving the first 2 emails in that series. It doesn't really matter. You just want to get them on schedule with all these people you're promoting the event to. It's kind of wordy explanation. Okay, so you use this Smart Series, so that now they've gotten added on this date, they've missed the previous ones, but now they're in line with the new ones, and they'll now pick up where everyone else is in the series. And then what you can do is attach the old emails as links to the bottom of the email they're receiving, right? So if they wanted to, they could go back and look at those 2 other emails they got, but now they're going to be in the same flow as everybody else, no matter when they joined. Now that's something that you can do, like I said, with the Smart Series, but it's something that doesn't work with the sign-up autoresponder. The sign-up autoresponder is that someone joins this, they're going to receive X, Y, and Z emails no matter what. They're just going to receive them no matter what. Okay? So let's go ahead and say, this is something for like the event promotion, and we'll say event 1. And, again, the demo's kind of breaking down here, but we'll just use this for our California leads. We create a message. It's all the same thing that we were seeing before. Sorry. And again, we can personalize things. We can even add a little emoji. And maybe this is going to be a real weird event, so we're going to get real weird with that emoji. And we're going to say this is from Out of Line, and we're going to move on next. And select a pre-designed template. And I'm just flying through this because this part isn't that important, actually, but unfortunately it's necessary to do what I want to do. So we'll go ahead and save and proceed. I know, I'm sorry, this is monotonous. Okay. So we've gone ahead and created this first email in the series. So here it is. This is E1 right there. And so now we're going to create our follow-up message. And now when we create our follow-up message, obviously we have to go through this whole process all over again because we are creating, this flow. And again, like I said, it doesn't make for the most interesting demo, unfortunately. But as we go through and we create this, it's going to be the same kind of process. But now the process has changed a little bit because you see we have this little Smart Series option right here in the builder. And what we can do is we can go ahead and choose this option and say the first message, which of course was something like E1. Obviously, like, you wouldn't just call it E1, right? I mean, that would be kind of crazy. 1 second. Right? I mean, this, again, kind of hard to really write that on the fly. But basically, this will be saved, and it'll be saved as you see it like this, right? So whatever you name the link, it's going to be, what you do, right? So it's important then to create that. And then obviously, you could even add a little header, that then goes right above that. And say, other stuff you should know, right? Like for every 4th of July, I usually go to this weird hippie outdoor music festival thing. And if again, they were sending out several emails about, don't feed the bears, 2nd email, please don't feed the bears, 3rd email, please keep your clothes on. Then in that 3rd email, you still want to say, hey, seriously, don't feed the bears. Please read about that, in case you've missed it, right? So again, it allows you to still include that content that people may have missed, and it even lets you just repeat yourself ad nauseum to really make sure that something has set in. So again, this would be pretty easy to do. You can ignore all that, but simple, right? You just add that stuff in, and now you're sending, very meta emails within emails, and you can hit save and proceed. You'll choose your theme and do this setting thing, and then here you go, right? So now, you've created you're creating your flow here, right? And set sending time. You want to decide when this is going to go out. So we'll say this goes out 7 days after the first message was sent, done. And now when we start this campaign, that first email is going out. 7 days later, the next one's going out, and it'll just keep going from there. And again, the Smart Series will work where you can add those old emails into the new ones as they go, so people are always up to date. And again, there's a nice little warning here that says, hey, your mailing list that you've attached here is empty, so this isn't even going to work, right? So we try to give you little errors or little messages there too to remind you if there's stuff that you need to do. Alrighty? So and also now this is going to just kind of start working, right? So when people start meeting the criteria for this list, it's going to just start happening, and it's going to start sending. And if you need to disable it or you want to turn it off, you're going to need to hit disable essentially and turn it off, right? That's the way it stops. It's like this very dedicated employee you have doing this one thing, and that person will do it until the end of time, until you tell them not to, okay? And it marks it as such. So that's a basic look at autoresponders. Workflows are also going to be something that you probably want to take a look at. They allow you to, again, move data around in different ways, which is really helpful. You can make them instant. You can do it time-based, activity-based. So for example, all of this stuff is going to follow kind of an if-then format. You can select a bunch of people or you can filter them down. So you can say, city is Austin. So for everyone that is in the city of Austin that we have that information for, we want something to happen. We can add a score, we can push some data to CRM, we can update another field, right? If we wanted to create a new field here, we could also do that. I mean, there's just a bunch of different things we can do depending on what we need to. I don't really have an example for you off the top of my head, but basically this is kind of one of those moments where when you said I want to have all of those people that are in a company get moved around in a certain way. If you wanted to just say, okay, go find everyone that's in this company and pull them out of my leads list and now put them in their own list, this is how you would do that, for example, right? But granted, you don't necessarily want to do that. You'd probably want to segment those people. It'd probably make more sense, but that's kind of a use case that you would have for that. Okay? So that's all I have really to show you.